Hello, I hope you're well. And I have been having some problems with my OBS lately. OBS was just freezing and I couldn't really use it. So at the moment I am using some kind of alternative, I don't know. Maybe it will look terrible, I don't know. I've not really even tested it. So I hope it looks okay, and if it does look or sound weird, that's why. And now actually this is the first video of a new series that I am doing, probably about just this summer. So it will be called GeoGuessr Tips for Beginners, and yeah, basically I will just be going through different GeoGuessr tips for beginners. I won't go into any region guessing and all that stuff, so if you are a complete beginner, this is a good video for you probably, but if you know anything about GeoGuessr really and want to learn region guessing, then click off, because this video probably won't help you at all. Again, I'll be going through the Plunkett guides for today, only North America, because I will be just taking probably one continent in one episode, maybe the bigger continents that have more countries, maybe 2 or 3 episodes for one. But since I am doing North America today, there are not too many countries there, so I can do this in one episode, I think. The last thing that I will just want to mention quickly is that if you have watched all my videos, maybe here, I will also create a playlist, by the way. If you have watched all these videos, then I definitely recommend checking out GeoGuessr Explained, which is if you have watched, just you can also take a look at Zigzag's second channel, GeoGuessr Explained. He's looking a bit more into the region guessing stuff. So Canada, the first thing that would just, yeah, uses British English spelling. So yeah, you have all of those examples here, and yeah, you probably know color is spelled differently. Yeah, and yeah, it does use the metric system, which is different from the US, which does use the imperial system. So miles and all that stuff, kilometers, are used in Canada. I do think there's just one road in the US that does use actually kilometers, but yeah, that's really rare. You will see in Mexico, though, you will see kilometers. Well, pretty much all other countries in the whole world, other than the US and, well, maybe also the UK, use kilometers and, yeah, the metric system. So, Canada does have quite a bit more Gen 2 coverage than the US. Maybe I'll make, at some point, also a video just also teaching about all the generations. So, if you do not know what Gen 2 and all that stuff means, you can check out the video by some other channel. Maybe I will make one myself at some point. But yeah, if you don't want to go into that stuff, you also can obviously not do that, but I do recommend that. I do recommend learning the generations and all that stuff, because it can be quite useful. Yeah, Gen 2 is quite rare in the US, but it does exist in both. And yeah, there's also Gen 1. And oh yeah, there's actually written an explanation what Gen 2 coverage exactly is. Yeah, and obviously you can take a look at all these guides and the region guessing stuff. If you want to learn region guessing yourself, you can just take a look at the Plunkett website. It's plunkett.net. I will probably leave a link in the description if you'd like to take a look. And yeah, Canada does use these diamond-shaped... they do use these yellow signs. That is common in North America and quite, well, pretty much the Americas and some other countries as well, anyway. But they do use these T-intersection signs that look exactly like this, but there are some differences in some other provinces in Canada. But again, I won't be going into that at the moment. Now, a really useful thing is this sign, the maximum sign. The US uses speed limit. This is just the speed limit sign in Canada, but yeah, US does use speed limit here, I think there is in Oregon, I think it's... No, I won't be going into that because, again, not learning region guessing at the moment. But yeah, also the speed limit's ending with 5, and well, you can just try to use a logic. So if it's 70, then it probably won't be the US because 70 miles an hour would be, well, yeah, 70 actually is quite possible still. But yeah, if you see like 90 or something like that, well, you can just use logic. That's not gonna be miles an hour. And yeah, again, really useful thing. Canadian roads do use mostly single yellow center lines, but there are obviously quite a lot of exceptions actually. I don't even know, like in the eastern provinces, I think mostly, but yeah. US does use these double yellow lines here. Also Mexico does use mostly single, but again there are exceptions, though these are even less common in Mexico. And yeah, I will just be trying to also mention like how useful a meta tip is here, so you don't just learn all of it and even the ones that are really not useful. So this next one actually that we do see here, this Canada Post red logo, like to be honest, I did not know that, and I don't think it's really useful. Well, I guess you can learn some of this stuff, and well, yeah, maybe this meta here is useful, but I don't think the learning logos and all that stuff is useful at all. So you can just remember it, because it really, I mean, it is not hard to remember, but I do recommend just maybe not learning some metas, because then you will just learn too much and maybe not remember something at all, even some useful things. So Canadian road signs, yes, they do tend to be less wordy compared to the US counterparts. So for example, this sign that you see here, it would have the word yield in the US, but in Canada it does not have anything on it. And I think this one would have railway crossing written on it. It would be a bit different anyway in the US, I think. I'm not really sure about that. I think the US and Australia have the same railway crossing signs. Well, pretty much at least. So yeah, so the way I remember it is just that Canada also speaks French in addition to English, and it just makes sense to not have those words, because then it would be French word or English word, and that would just make it a bit confusing. But they do obviously have the word stop on stop signs, or sometimes the French version. I'm not gonna pronounce that. But yeah, also one useful thing that I don't think was here at all is I will just find it in the Plunkett guide as well. And yeah, here you can see the stop signs in Quebec does look different, and also in France. So if sometimes maybe you have Canada and France confused, because in Quebec anyway, Canada mostly speaks French actually. There's really not a lot of English, so you can confuse it with France sometimes if you're a less experienced player anyway. And yeah, then you can know that in France they just write stop on the signs, but in Quebec they will always be like this. Maybe there are some exceptions, I don't know. And yet these are New Brunswick, and no, I won't be really going into the region guessing stuff anymore, and just take the next country, US, which is obviously a really important country in GeoGuessr, because yeah, most maps do have a lot of US locations. So usually there are most locations in Russia in most maps, and maybe like Brazil, and US is usually like second, third, fourth, something like that. So it's a really useful country to learn, well, identifying obviously, and also region guessing at some point. So yeah, they do use American English spelling, and they do use miles, the imperial system, which I already did talk about when in Canada. So, and Gen 2 is much more rare in the US, but it can still exist. So yeah, also obviously this is the flag, this is the shape of the country, this is, I don't think the .us domain is used a lot, maybe sometimes, but I haven't really seen it at all. And yeah, they drive on the right, obviously. I didn't mention that for Canada, but I think you know that both of those, I think, yeah, all the North American countries, at least the ones that have coverage, drive on the right. I think. Maybe not, I'm not sure, but I do think so. Yeah, Gen 1 is quite a bit more common in the US than Canada, but obviously, again, in most popular and good maps, you won't really have Gen 1 at all. Some maps maybe might have it, but yeah, here you can see railroad crossing. I said railway crossing, I think, I don't know. And yeah, do not enter one way. Again, the one way sign, I think maybe it can sometimes have text in Canada, I'm not sure. But yeah, normally it will have nothing. And yeah, here you can again see more words, speed limit, and there are some exceptions where they say something different here, but mostly. And yeah, these triangular yellow signs, no passing zone, they are usually, I can open this location, and if you, yeah, that makes sense. So if we are here, actually we're driving on the right, but when we see this sign, it is actually on the left. Well, these signs don't exist anywhere else at all anyway, so that doesn't really do anything, but just an interesting thing to know. And yeah, these yield signs, the same as Canada, but just without the text in Canada and with the text in the US. And yeah, these one-way signs, we already have all of that in here, so we don't really need to go over that anymore. And oh yeah, this is just the same thing, less words in Canada. These, oh yeah, highway signs, that's actually a useful thing. So these highway signs in the US usually, well, they actually, the signs themselves do have these square corners, but the border, the white border here, is a bit curved. In the US, in the Canada, you will normally have the border as well, but it's gonna be square, not curved. And yeah, the signs, well, actually they look exactly the same. That's actually a useful thing, again, to know. And yeah, here we use miles again. In Canada you won't have miles. So if you see this sign, that's really obvious. Really obvious. US. Well, this sign is not really useful. I don't think I've really seen a lot of them, but well, yeah, Canada uses similar signs sometimes as well, so I don't think this is really a useful thing at all. So yeah, actually the diamond-shaped junction signs that we already saw in Canada, they are different from the ones in US. They just look like this in the US. And I don't think there's really any exceptions there. So yeah, this is actually also, I think, quite a useful tip. I have sometimes gotten the US when it actually, I wanted to say it's Canada, but I just see this thing here and I know it's the US. They can be found in Canada again, but not really. Yeah, this is the standard American, at least North American, I think. US, Canada, both use this construction barrel, but again in Canada I think there's just one exception in Ontario where it looks different. And yeah, these yellow middle lines, we already talked about that. The rumble strips, yeah, they also, again, they can appear in Canada, but are much more rare, but I wouldn't say they're that useful. But you do see a lot of them in Australia, so I would say they are the most common in Australia, but well, we're talking about North America today, so yeah, these rectangular manufactured homes, again, you can see them in Canada, so I wouldn't say it's that useful, but yeah, they are a lot more common in the US, and you can actually use it a bit for region guessing, so they are, yeah, would confirm this thing that they are a bit more common in the southeast, but not like 100%. So yeah, Baptist churches, yeah, they are. I don't think I've really seen any of them in Canada. They are, obviously, again, they do exist, but not really a lot. And yeah, you can again use it for southeast region guessing, but I wouldn't say that's too useful because you see them a lot in pretty much everywhere. So yeah, these are some gas stations and convenience stores and all that stuff. So you can just take a look right here, restaurants, and if you like, just take a look. And I won't be going into that at the moment. And again, you can just take a look at the Plunkett guide yourself if you like. US and Canada. Well, yeah, I can take a little look at that as well. Maybe not too much. Yeah, wooden utility poles are a lot more common in North America than in Europe, and also they are a lot more common. You won't really see any concrete poles in, well, really anywhere in North America. But you will see a lot of concrete poles in Europe. And I think you can sometimes see metal poles, maybe. I'm not actually sure. And yeah, this really simple insulator is a lot more common in North America, again, especially US and Canada. And it's really rare in Europe. And this type of mailbox, you won't really see any of those in Europe. So again, it's quite useful. And yeah, this is actually a really useful thing again. These trucks, Australia also uses a mix of this and this. So it's just, well, you can read this explanation. The nose is really, well, a lot longer in the Americas, and in Europe it's just kind of, well, you see what it looks like. And the water towers are, yeah, you can use it for, well, I wouldn't really call that region guessing, but you can just see the town name sometimes on the water tower. So yeah, these water towers, again, they are like really, really rare in Europe. At least the ones that look like this. US and Canada, Europe, yeah, they really won't have any antenna. Here sometimes they do have this stubby antenna in national parks that look like this. But yeah, in Europe you will really commonly see the antenna. Sometimes it's gonna be blurred, and then you will see maybe this is Gen 3 obviously, but in Gen 4 you can sometimes obviously again see the antenna in Europe, pretty much never in the US or Canada. And yeah, now we're getting into the regional clues, which I will not talk about today, but I will just take a little bit of a look at Alaska and Hawaii and those as well. So yeah, these license plates are actually, again, well, you can take a look at those. They can actually be quite useful, I will say. So these are quite rare, but these ones, I think I've seen most of these in Alaska, but yeah, these ones are also useful. You will get really similar ones to this yellow one in other places. Well, yeah, there's highway shields, and well, this is kind of region guessing stuff, so I won't be talking about that too much, but just really quickly going over it. So Hawaii is, yeah, you will see in Hawaii the language and place names and that stuff looks really different from just the normal American English place names. And they do have quite a bit of Gen 2 coverage. Alaska also has a lot of Gen 2 coverage. And Alaska, I think, does have some Gen 1 as well. Hawaii does not have any Gen 1, it looks like. But Alaska also, by the way, has ShitCam. Really little bit, but some. So yeah, it's large and tropical vegetation and some volcanoes as well. And now Puerto Rico, I will just really quickly talk about that. That's in, well, Central America, and it's not a US state, it's just a territory. And yeah, really useful thing is that you see in Gen 3 there is some Gen 4 now, but in Gen 3 you will get this antenna, and there are in Guam and Northern Mariana Islands there is the same antenna here, but in Guam you will get a little bit of the roof rack around here, and in Northern Mariana Islands you won't get that, but in neither of those you will see this little white dot. So if you see this, then that's Puerto Rico. Guam and NMI, neither of them have this. And yeah, it does use some small cam. There is also, small cam is quite common, I would say, in Hawaii as well. And also there is some in California and maybe some other states as well. I don't know, not completely sure. And this 787 area code, really useful to remember, because if you see Spanish, well, you might just think you are in South America or Mexico or something like that, but if you see this 787 or less commonly 939, then you are in Puerto Rico, and yeah, Spanish is used instead of English. You can sometimes see English more commonly than in South America or other Spanish-speaking countries that are not part of the US. So yeah, American store chains and other infrastructure and, well, yeah, other infrastructure, store chains, and also like some of the signs, yeah, you see these signs and this, all of that looks really similar to the US, but this is in Spanish, the text. So yeah, it's quite easy to understand the difference between Puerto Rico and America, and well, whatever. Yeah, and front plates, you usually won't see front plates in Puerto Rico. And yeah, they do say para. So yeah, this is common in Dominican Republic, all of South America, and yeah, Puerto Rico, in Central America, in the Spanish-speaking countries, and there you will see alto on the stop signs, which I will be talking about when we get into Mexico. Yeah, not really. And they do use kilometers instead of miles, even though it's actually, well, a part of America. American Samoa, I'm not going to talk about that at the moment. And yeah, I'll leave Guam and NMI as well. I will just really quickly take a look at Virgin Islands, because that's actually really useful to know, because if you see, well, a truck that looks like this, especially if you see this red truck, there is a similar one in Nigeria actually as well, but it's not really, you can see the difference quite easily. And if you see this red truck, you will always be on the bigger island here, and the white this can exist here as well, but if you see the antenna and this thing here, then you'll be around here. Yeah, that's, I mean, you don't really have to learn region guessing in the Virgin Islands, because just quite a small area. But also now these other islands here are not really useful, but the Midway Atoll can sometimes at least be on maps. Well, it's usually some locations, like 2 or 3 locations in big maps. If you see a lot of albatrosses, then you will be probably on Midway Atoll. Yeah, these runways, the airport thing that's also there, are covered for some reason. So yeah, this is, by the way, the road that I was talking about that does use kilometers instead of miles, even though it's in the US and now Mexico. So yeah, .mx, this is the shape, this is the flag, drive on the right, and a little bit of Gen 1, but really rare, and you won't see it on any maps, almost. These octagonal poles are, yeah, they are a bit common in Colombia as well, but, well, they are quite famous for being in Mexico. These short license plates, instead of the longer ones that you will see in, well, most countries in South America, you can obviously use the sun to know that you are in the northern hemisphere, but most of Colombia is also in the northern hemisphere, so we can't only trust that. And sometimes the sun lies to you as well, so you can't trust it anyway sometimes. And yeah, this single unbroken yellow middle line that I already talked about in Mexico, these bollards, they can look a bit different, but usually they have this black thing on the bottom and are white, and sometimes they do have this yellow reflector as well. And I think there was a red reflector, or it was another yellow one or something that can also be used for region guessing, but not going to talk about that at the moment. Most highway shields, these do have Mexico, and they can look a bit different sometimes, but they look like this and have Mexico written on top. So yeah, kilometers, they use kilometers, and the kilometer markers look like this. Cacti are really common in Mexico. The most stereotypical cacti that they are in Arizona mostly. Arizona is in the US, obviously. You will see them near the border in Mexico as well. So yeah, I don't know if we see any of those. Are these the ones? No, I'm not really sure about that. Alto on stop signs, all of South America uses para. Yeah, arrows on signs are very thick, but I don't know how useful that is to know. Yellow accents on curbs, did not know that. Maybe it's useful, maybe it's not, don't know. These water tanks, also did not know. Maybe it's useful, maybe it's not. So these, I don't know about the Pemex, but this OXO, I don't know, maybe you pronounce it some other way, I don't know. This is really common in Mexico, and again, that has sometimes saved me from going wrong country. But they do exist in other countries as well. I think even the US has a little bit of them, possibly. So yeah, you can take a look at this. Place names. Circular electricity counters, really useful. You will see them in other places as well, but really useful thing. It's quite a well-known meta. So yeah, United States car brands are quite popular in Mexico because it is close to the US, and you will see a lot of pickup trucks, pretty much the same amount I would say as the US. So yeah, they do have Gen 2 coverage, and it's actually a decent amount, so you can definitely see it sometimes. Gen 2, Gen 3 coverage in Mexico does have both of these cars, and yeah. Gen 4 can look quite different. This striped car, which has like white, blue, white, is known as just the striped car. Blue, black, and I think maybe in the new coverage, maybe there are some new cars, I'm not sure, because Mexico I think has been getting some new coverage, possibly, I'm not sure, maybe I'm wrong. And also just one thing that I really do want to mention, which is a really well-known meta, and I mean, I just have to mention it. So I'll find it here quickly. Spotlight, probably. It's not loading properly, but can I just see it? Okay, it's here. It's not in Spotlight, I don't know. But yeah, this pink taxi, that is, well, it's actually white, but the roof is pink. This you will see CDMX. If you want to be a cool GeoGuessr player, then call Mexico City CDMX, because you will be a lot cooler then. And yeah, this taxi in CDMX. So yeah, this is the flag, this is the shape.do. You won't really see .do commonly. Drive on the right, only Gen 3. Yeah, only Gen 3 at the moment, but maybe they are. I think they are doing some new coverage there as well. So you will always get this car that has this roof rack with these black parts kind of filled in with black, and the white front. You will always see the white front, I think. Most electricity poles is, yeah, there you do see the concrete poles and they are square. Yeah, license plates, they can be useful, but not too useful, I would say. They also don't use front plates, as well as Puerto Rico and Panama. Also, some states in Canada and some states of the US and provinces of Canada also do not have front plates on cars. Yeah, this is not really useful. Again, Pare on these signs, and only 2 cities are covered, so you can learn a bit of the region guessing. It's quite useful to know, like, so you know which city you are in. You can definitely take some points off your opponent if you're playing duels and they do not know it. Puerto Rico, we already talked about. Then this really little island that belongs to France, I think. Yeah, here, flag stuff, all that. Yeah, again, driving on the right. Gen 3, they have tracker, not really anything special. It doesn't really show up on any maps. I think on my map, Hano World, I think there's 2 or 3 locations on that island of the total 95,000. So yeah, really isn't too useful to know, but you do have to know that it exists, because sometimes it will show up, and if you don't know, you'll lose a lot of points. Yeah, Guatemala, this shape, this flag, that GT, again, you won't see it too often, but a bit more common than some other ones. Driving on the right, only Gen 3 at the moment. Guatemala car is obviously really well known, these front mirrors and the roof rack. Yeah, it's quite a tropical country, looks like this. Mostly, I think, yeah, you will see a single yellow middle line, but it can sometimes look a bit different. There are different variations of it. Architecture just looks like the average kind of North American, Central American, South American. Alto on stop signs. And yeah, these don't really know how useful they are, and not really anything else. If you're not playing NPC, you can just use this. GT car only exists in Guatemala. Well, this exact one at least. There are variations of this without the roof rack, and I think some countries do have a really similar one, but yeah, I don't think there's the exact same one. Kyrgyzstan does have a really, really, really similar one, but it's just a bit different, so you can usually spot the difference if you have played a bit. Costa Rica, this shape, this flag, .cr, again the domain not really useful. Driving on the right, tracker, tripod, mostly tracker, yeah. If you're in a city, you will always be in the capital city of, what's the capital city? Don't remember. San Jose, okay? Yeah, Gen 3 tracker, speak Spanish. These license plates not too useful, but you can just learn it. Alto on stop signs again. And yeah, you do have coverage in a lot of spots, but if you're in a city, then you are in San Jose, and if you're not, then you are, well, in different places. Don't know. Yeah, not really anything else here. Wouldn't say so. Urban coverage. Okay, so it does exist in some other places. Okay, maybe I was wrong then. Don't know. But yeah, that is, I think, all for Costa Rica. Again, since it does have at the moment only tracker and tripod coverage, it will probably get some new, probably I think small cam coverage in, well, I think in 2025, 2026, don't know. But yeah, until it does get that, it again usually has really like 5 to 10 locations on official maps. Panama will be the last actual country here. We have just one more thing left. So the shape, this flag, .pa, not really useful, driving on the right, Gen 4, on Gen 4 with this truck that has this antenna. Sometimes it's almost fully blurred, sometimes it looks like this. These license plates with the turquoise on top. Tropical country with quite a bit of hills, yeah, really tropical. And yeah, sometimes it's actually obviously completely blurred and then the blur will be really big. Quite a bit of different poles. There's taxi with the checkerboard pattern here. Alto stop sign. Don't know what this is. And the last thing here is Curaçao, which actually is an overseas territory of, I don't know if it's officially called an overseas territory, don't know. Flag, domain, driving on the right, only Gen 3 of the Netherlands. So yeah, it's just a bit north of Venezuela. This license plate, not really useful, I would say, and this roof rack, but the black front, only Curaçao, nowhere else. Yeah, sometimes you see this cacti. So houses that kind of look like this color scheme, I think you can see what I mean. This is also really common in Curaçao. You can get that in other places, but I would say that houses that look exactly like this are not really common anywhere else, at least the countries that do have street view coverage. So the road signs that do have these backs that are kind of, the colors are continuing to the backs of signs. They are quite common in the Netherlands also, since it is a territory of the Netherlands, but you can see a lot of them in Curaçao. I think mostly those in Curaçao and sometimes those in the Netherlands, but you can't really mix up Curaçao and the Netherlands. Yeah, yellow signposts, don't really know these traffic lights posts. You can see that in the Netherlands as well, but also here. Yeah, these poles, don't know. Yeah, wind turbines are really common in the Netherlands as well. So yeah, really similar to the Netherlands. They speak Dutch as well, which I'm surprised wasn't written here. So a lot of place names and street names and all that stuff will be in Dutch usually. And yeah, that's actually all for today. I won't do Greenland at the moment. Well, there's not really anything to talk about Greenland. It's just trackers in these places. Nuke has this car, nowhere else this car. So yeah, you just see boat trackers. If it's quite a big city, then you will be in the capital city of Nuke. And yeah, just looks really kind of northern. There's not really anything going on. Gen 3 only, driving on the right, .gl, really uncommon, the domain. This is the flag, sometimes you can see the flag, and it's worth it to learn some of the bigger place names, I would say, in Greenland. And that's actually all for today's video. So if you did enjoy this video, then maybe like and subscribe and click on the video that appears now on screen. Goodbye.